and welcome to the show Healthy Living. I'm Kaylene Cornell, Health Education Coordinator for the Purchase District Health Department. September is the National Preparedness Month, a time to get prepared for emergencies. Developing a family communication plan or making an emergency supply kit are the same for emergencies and natural disasters. However, there are important differences among potential emergencies that should impact the decisions you make and actions you take. We are going to talk about how your family can get prepared. I'm joined today with Cindy Mangrum from the Purchase District Health Department, and she is going to share her expertise, and thank you for coming on the show. Why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and what you do for the district?
Well, I'm Cindy Mangrum, and I am the Preparedness Planner for Purchase District Health Department. That entails, you know, trying to get all the equipment here and prepared for if we have a disaster, being in meetings with other members that work on disasters, being part of emergency management, and just being ready if we ever have a disaster and having those partners set. Also, I'm part of the Kentucky Hospital Association, which our coalition works together to make sure that we have portable hospitals, communication equipment, everything ready if a disaster happens.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Well, let's get right to the emergency preparedness part and how we can prepare for this disaster. You've always mentioned that there's very simple steps that we could follow through. What are those?
Those 3 steps is a family emergency plan, having an emergency supply kit, and knowing about different disasters and what you should do before that disaster happens. Mm-hmm. It's so important to plan ahead of time and to drill on this plan and for people to know what your plan is.
Sure, yeah. Well, I know when my family, our children were much younger, like 3 and 5, we started actually having weekly family meetings. One was chair, one was secretary, and one did treats and eats. And during these family meetings, one of the things was that we talked about, for instance, like if we'd have a fire, you know, at our house, how the children would get out of their rooms and what bush at the next neighbor's yard that we would all meet at, you know. So tell me, with making this plan, you know, how, with family separation, I mean, that is huge in part of the preparation.
It is very scary. You know, we tend to think that our family's all going to be together, but you know how we're out everywhere now. You may have a child in daycare, you may be at work, the mother may be at work, the father may be out of town. It's not, we can't plan for this disaster that everybody's going to be at home in the house together and you're going to have all of that support.
Right,
so
yeah.
You do have to plan ahead, and it's going to relieve some of that anxiety for your children too if they know that your parents have sat down with a plan. They know what's going to happen, what you're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. So in that family plan, we need to make sure that they know phone numbers. If I lost my cell phone today, I wouldn't even know the phone number of my daughter. Would you, Kate? Mm-hmm. Would you know your phone number?
No, because it's just push the button.
We
just don't keep those numbers.
I've got about 300 contacts in my phone, but my phone was dead, or the battery's dead, or if I couldn't pick up my phone, I'd be lost on who to call. So it's very important to sit down and get all of this information put down on little cards or pieces of paper, and for the kids to know emergency contact information, to know of an outside relative that you could call into and let them know you're all right. Lots of times where the disaster is happening right here, like this happening here in Paducah, the phones may not work here, or you may not get through, but you might could get through to someone outside of this city or another state. But got to make sure whoever you make that outside contact to, that they know that they're your outside contact person and share that information with them. Mm-hmm. Also in daycares now, they're supposed to have an emergency plan for our kids that are there. But I would encourage that families would make sure that in their backpacks that the kids had phone numbers. Mm-hmm. And those kids had a general idea where those phone numbers were if something happened. Sharing with that child is going to relax that child so much more and knowing what to do. So.
Right, yeah, because every facility, you know, the daycares, the schools, they all have contacts, but you never know when the emergency is going to happen, and it might be halfway between.
Absolutely.
You know, so.
And they got to know where you're thinking about that you would evacuate to. Like there will be several shelters put up here in the McCracken and Paducah, just like anywhere else. You know, which shelter, they got to have a sort of a general idea of where you would evacuate to. Also in fires, like you were talking about with your family, we hope there will never be a fire, but if they knew the exit plan that you have planned for your house, the meeting place outside, it's going to relieve a lot of anxiety, and probably, you know, that things are going to be much better if a fire happens, people are going to get out alive.
Right, yeah. And for children to know that it's okay for them to do this on their own, you know, not to wait for, you know, someone coming to them, because no one may be able to get to them, and so they have to know that, you know, this is their plan.
And we have just gotten so used to so much technology. And the ice storm was the thing that made us realize that our technology could all fail.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and with texting out here, we've got to make sure that most our kids now at young ages have got a cell phone and they text. Well, you got to teach them how to text, probably for just one reason, is a text may get through when a phone call won't. So it's very important for our kids to learn that. Oh, yeah. And usually they're better at these phones and all this technology than we are, but but for them to know how to do that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Talking about the ice storm, what is ice? I mean, I've heard, you know, sometimes we use that term.
Well, for ice, it's an emergency contact information. What we need to do is, in our phones, you would put ICE, I-C-E, you know, like of a phone contact. Like that would be the name, ICE. Emergency workers and people will go lots of times to the person's phone and look up the word ICE. In there you can get an app where you can put all of your medications, your doctor, anything you think is important. I know some of the apps will even let you copy your driver's license there. Any important things that need to be there if you should get hurt in an accident, or so they would be able to know that important information. But just go into your phone and put the contact's name as ICE, and then put all of your information. Who you'd want to be contacted if there wasn't an emergency. You know, it's so important for people to know that. It can save lives, plus can decrease a lot of anxiety. You know, even if your kids are carrying a phone around, why not program that phone for their parents, or and then a grandmother if something happened to the parents. So that information would be there, and make sure that child knows what ICE means, and that's where all of that information is. It would just relieve their stress so much.
Yeah, yeah. There's, you know, different bad weathers that you think of, you know, different situations. What are different ways that you can be alerted by these different
There's
weathers?
the weather radios. And you know, a lot of us got the weather radios when they first came out, and all they did was beep, beep, beep. And so finally you just unplug those down. You know, you get tired of hearing that noise. But now they have come out with a weather radio that you can program just for your area. Just, you know, like where I live, I could program it where it would just go off just for my area, or however far distance that I would want it to. So that is another way. We also have weather sirens, and I remember back in March, let's see, I was still in bed when I heard that siren go off, and that's what told me there was something wrong. Usually they're only for outside, but you'll find a lot of homes that can hear this. We have 19 sirens that go off here in McCracken County, in this area, and they're looking at bringing more in because we have found that they're such a great asset to our area. And they test those sirens once a month to make sure that they're working. So I'm just very grateful that the sirens are there. They get people to notice.
Right.
You know, don't worry about the sound of the siren. When you hear that, get on the TV or the radio and see what that siren is. But they do test them once a month, and that just to make sure that they're working.
Mm-hmm.
Also, a lot of our cell phones now, you can go ahead and fix it where it will send you alerts. And I know we had something to happen the other day, and I got an alert on my phone through one of the organizations, and it told me about the bad weather that was coming. So that's very important.
Mm-hmm.
Also here, WPSD has a service called Weather Call. I think it's a wonderful idea where you can be alerted for your area close to you. It can be a text message. It can be on your home phone. I think you can hook it up for 3 different places, and it's very reasonable rate for a whole year. And all you got to go do is to the website and sign up. So the main thing is knowing that the weather is coming and preparing for that weather. Sometimes you only got a few minutes, but if you know that it's coming, you can get in a safe place, and that's what it's on. We want to protect life. Everything else we can we can replace, but we want to protect life.
Sure, yeah. Now I know with those weather radios, can you get those where they're just in your area also, or is it more Western Kentucky? That
you can fix it just for your area, just right here. You can do a lot with these new weather radios. I mean, we used to have one in our office, and all we wanted to do was unplug that thing, because it was just horrible. But if you get the right kind of weather radio, and they cost about $50 a piece, and make sure that you do your research. Don't let somebody sell you one that's going to beep every time the wind blows. And get you one that you can program, and it'll come in very handy. Yeah,
because I know the TV station, they, you know, every so often are talking about that you can purchase one through them, isn't it? Or is it?
I've not seen that, but I'm sure there's a lot of.
Maybe they've just talked about it.
There's
Maybe
a lot
of,
but the weather call is what they push for the TV station. But I like anything that comes to my cell phone. I mean, we have our cell phones with us day and night, everywhere we go.
Yeah.
And that's just so important. That's why I think a lot of the only problem of putting everything in our cell phone, if we lose that cell phone in a disaster, we're going to lose all of that stuff. I go back to the ice storm. My whole life was around my cell phone, and when we didn't have a cell phone for several days, all that information was sort of lost.
Sure, yeah.
So, you know, and it's good if you don't have a cell phone to make it one of the prepaid ones, you know, to have on hand if a disaster comes up or something like that. But just make sure whatever your plan is, whatever you decide for your family, that everyone in your family and outside of your family and friends know what the plan is. Not just you. Let your family know.
Sure, yeah. Well, as you've stressed, you know, that being prepared is the most important. Let's talk about a disaster supply kit. What?
You know, you want to prepare for the worst. If you prepare for the worst, then you're ready for the little things that happen. Going back to the ice storm, I remember the day that I had no power and I thought it'd only be off for a couple hours. Got out there and thought I could just stop by a restaurant and pick up food. Well, I never realized if the power was out at my home, it was going to be out at every restaurant in the world. So prepare, make sure you got stuff on hand. The main thing you want to have is a gallon of water for each person that's in your home. So they want you to prepare for 72 hours. That's what they talk about, but a lot of times you need to prepare for more like 96 hours. So that's a lot of water if you've got 5 in your family, and you need to rotate that stock. Everything you put in your stock, in your supply kit, make sure that you rotate it, because we don't know when the disaster is going to happen. Food, a 3-day supply. Make sure you have that can opener though.
Yes.
It's good to put tuna and all of that stuff in the cans and the soups and all that, but if you didn't bring that that little can opener that you crank to go around, that you're tough luck.
Oh, I know, yeah. I've been on camping trips without the can opener. It's like, what do we do now? Okay, anybody want to bite into this can? I mean, you know, it's like we have to figure out how we can, you know.
We've gotten so used to having electricity and gas whenever we want it.
Yeah.
And I think we've changed a little bit since the ice storm, and I keep referring, because that was just devastating, and everybody woke up after the ice storm. But I know it changed me. I made sure I had another form of heat besides electricity, made sure I had a gas stove, because I never want to be put in that position again. But I didn't think at that time, I don't think I had a battery-operated radio. You know, we just did not think. So that is another thing you want to have, is you want to have a weather radio, you know, and you want to have a battery-operated radio so you can stay in contact with what's going on in the world out there.
Yeah, yeah.
And don't forget the batteries.
Right, absolutely, yeah.
You're going to go through a whole lot of batteries out there if this disaster keeps on going for a long time.
Yeah.
And I don't want to forget, through all this talk about medications, you got to look at your family dynamics, what's going on in your family, and your supply kit is going to be different in your family from my family. You know, if I have a newborn baby or needs formula, diapers, you got to plan for that. Don't forget about your pets. We're talking about water for the people in your family. Think about all the water that those pets are going to need too, and you're going to have to prepare for that. So
sure, yeah.
Pets had a bad time when all of the hurricanes and all happened, and we want to plan for our pets to be taken care of.
And food also for the pets. You
That's
know?
true.
I mean, I think the most common is you think of water and food, okay? But there are definitely, you know, like medications. For instance, like asthma, you know, you need to have that medicine. You can't be caught without it. Cardiovascular medications.
Absolutely.
Any chronic disease, that is, you know, any medicine that you take at a daily.
And then your diabetes medicine, you know, people that are on insulin and everything. You got to prepare for all of this.
Anything that daily that you take, you
know,
have to know.
And people say, well, you can only get so much medicine with all those restrictions and now.
Yeah.
But, you know, every plan's a little bit different, but sometimes you can go like a week ahead and get medicine, and that would give you just a few pills. Not all plans are like that, but if you think ahead, you might just get a few pills ahead for a disaster on what happens. You know, the thing you got to do is plan. Like the cavalry is not coming for at least 72, 96 hours. You got to plan to take care of your family and yourself for that long.
Sure, yeah.
We just don't know what the disaster, you got to be prepared if you had to shelter in place, which means, you know, you would have to stay at your home. You might have to put plastic up if something's going on outside where there's been a release of terrorism or something where there's something that could get in. Got to learn how to put that plastic, duct tape. Always have duct tape around. That's good for a whole lots of things. Even just keeping the gas going, you know, have an extra tank of gas for your gas grill. You could always cook outside if nothing else.
Right, yeah.
Having an ice chest available at your home where you could put your frozen foods in that, and that would get you by for a little while till that started thawing out.
Sure.
I remember the ice storm, all I had in my freezer was, I think I had some barbecue and some ice cream. Well, that ice cream started melting, but I ate that ice cream till I couldn't eat it anymore.
Right,
so,
yeah.
Because I just wasn't really prepared. I always thought I could go to a restaurant.
Yeah.
Make sure you have a first aid kit. You never know what you're going to need, and just having that kit available is going to make it much easier. And bandages and stuff. Yeah. A whistle. Have we ever, you know, I know I'd hate to try to whistle here, but to have a whistle on hand if you're under some debris or something and you need to let somebody know where you were at.
Right.
Have a whistle available. And they talk about a dust mask. You know, if you've got fallen debris or anything, you're going to have a lot of dust, so have a dust mask available. Always have garbage bags. We don't want to think about it, but for sanitation and stuff, we might need to have a garbage bag available for that purpose.
Sure.
And for other things, having some wet toilets. You know, you're not going to be able to take a shower, but just a little wet wipe to wipe your face and everything is going to be good for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the one thing I learned, in every emergency kit you should have a wrench. You never know when you're going to have to turn off the gas or turn something off.
Right.
And that was a learning experience for me, to learn how to turn my own gas off. I mean,
Yeah.
I just thought that wasn't. But I went to a training and they taught me how to do that, and that was very important. I did not know how.
I know, and that was one of the things. Well, that and the mask, I guess those are things that you just don't automatically think to put in your kit, you know, but very, very smart idea to have that.
And you know, we don't think about cash. Going back to the ice storm, thank goodness I had filled up my car the night before, and I did have a little cash on me because the machines didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
We think we're just going to be able to go to these machines and get money when we needed it. And
Right. Yeah.
And so and we all start failing on this. After that all happened, I started saving a little cash back and putting it back. But then you go get it. You got to
Mm-hmm.
remember that you're going to need cash.
Yeah.
Also,
Absolutely.
think about matches. I know I went to get some matches that I had for several years. They don't work. Just the moisture in the air can destroy your
Sure.
matches. So make sure that you keep them in a plastic bag where moisture doesn't get.
Yeah.
And hygiene items we got to think about. We're going to need some hygiene items during that time. Whatever is going to work for your family, you need to make sure that you put in the supply kit.
Right.
And if you have sleeping bags, that works. If you don't, just some blankets and pillows. We just don't know what's going to. But you don't want to put all your, like they say, all your eggs in one basket. Like mine would probably be in my garage, but what if my garage collapsed and I couldn't get there? So you might want to have more than one supply kit in different areas, just in case that you couldn't get to one area.
That's a good idea. Yeah, I mean, I just think of, you know, my one location where we have ours, you know, I've never thought of that, you know, when tornado hits. I mean,
you just don't know.
yeah.
And you sure want to know your neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
It was back in March when that tornado, the bad winds came through. I had never really got to know my neighbors very well next door, but I knew it was pretty dangerous out there, and they had a basement. So I went over and introduced myself because I thought, don't wait till then. Get to know your neighbors before the disaster, because you never know if you might need their basement or their help.
Right. Yep.
And so it works out.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. One other thing that I was thinking when I was looking through this supply kit was, you know, how we talk about to have food. Well, you need utensils too.
Yes.
You know, and I thought, okay, I mean, that just, you would think that would be kind of a, you know, no-brainer, okay, but
I know.
you know, you really have to think, like, you know, a camping trip, what all do you need, you know, for the supply kit?
That's why it's good to go to ready.gov. Just go ahead and Google ready.gov, and it'll bring you up everything you need for a supply kit. It's good to look at Red Cross. They've been doing this for years. They've got it down pat what they think that you need in a supply kit, things that we would never think of. And each supply kit, you'll see differences, but you got to go ahead and take what you get on this list and think about what your family needs. It's all about, this is what this show's about. It's all about what your family needs to make it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And what now, I was looking through the kit, and one of them kind of, it made me wonder, so I'm going to have you explain this, household cleaner.
You know, not sure why you would need
Maybe this is, you know, what I was thinking was, well, I mean, like for a natural disaster, afterwards, after the fact.
Maybe that's what you were saying for
know.
cleanup. But I just want to get through the disaster. But
yeah,
from anytime you go to any of the meetings, they talk about, as soon as a disaster, you're always thinking about disaster being over and cleaning up. So maybe that's what it was all about. But no, I just want to get us through the disaster and come out the other way.
Your personal needs, I guess, is what you're thinking. What to survive with.
Yes,
You know, you can live without a clean house, but you know, really, after a natural disaster, it's more than just a clean house. It really is. You know.
Yeah, you've made it, and it's just a you know, you've made it.
Yeah.
I even saw in some of the kits where they said make sure that you have things for the kids, like cards and games and stuff for the kids. And I'm thinking, I wouldn't think of that because, hey, we're just thinking of getting through.
Right.
But really, the kids are going to get, you know, they're going to get bored. You will have to have things. We just don't know what the disaster will be.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And of course, you know, clothing, like you said, you know, the blankets. But you know, if it is a, you know, a harsh disaster, you're going to need some clothes after. And if it's during the winter time and it's very cold, you need, you know, something. So.
Yeah, you're going to have coats, you know. I was so glad that I had coveralls at my house. You know, it came in handy when in the ice storm, those coveralls. You didn't care what you looked like, you just wanted to stay warm when that heat was.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, the layered look really takes on a whole different image.
Beauty is not something that you're concerned about. All you're worried about is warmness and getting food into your stomach.
Yeah. Well, we've talked a lot about personal readiness, but there's a lot with the community and the volunteers.
I'm glad you asked about that. I don't think our community realizes how many volunteers that we have out there ready for any disaster. We always have the Red Cross, and they're a wonderful organization that is out there. But the one organization I don't think they realize is the Medical Reserve Corps. We recruit medical and non-medical volunteers, and I'm the Medical Reserve Corps leader for a Purchase District in this area. And all you have to do is go to Google K-Help, sign in, and you can sign up and be a volunteer. The volunteers will be trained. You'll be able to work in shelters. You'll be able to work next to emergency responders, whatever they need. Also, there is CERT training. CERT means that you can go through your emergency manager in your counties, and they offer a program that's called Community Emergency Response. And they train you where you can help in your neighborhood if there's an emergency. There's not going to be enough emergency workers to go around. So we have to have volunteers.
Right.
So if you would like to volunteer, get into one of these programs and learn all you can learn before the disaster and be a volunteer. Yeah. There's nothing better than helping out your community.
Absolutely, and we did. We saw a lot of that during the ice storm. Well, thank you, Cindy. You've given a lot of information, and we do have on the screen where people can call. They can contact you, or like we said, go to that website, ready.gov. That definitely would be a good place for them. But as we've talked today about emergency preparedness today, hopefully you have learned more about how you can plan ahead and be prepared for any emergency. Take time to write down that emergency supply list. It is important to be prepared and to plan and stay informed. And I just want to thank you for watching the show today, and thanks again, Cindy, for coming
and
sharing your expertise.